The room we're in used to be one of the ship's stores during the 80s. So I have various items that eventually could go on display around the ship. This was an item we were a little surprised to have come back to our Battleship Iowa. It's a guest registration book. We assumed that either the National Archives or the Navy's History and Heritage Command had this. We open up, and again, this is from World War II and the Korean War era. This is a visit from Harry Hopkins, President Roosevelt's advisor. And we believe the rest of these folks are part of the White House staff. And we think they might have been reviewing Iowa or taking a tour of Iowa to see if it could accommodate President Roosevelt and his war cabinet. And here we come over to another page when the ship was in the Newfoundland before picking up President Roosevelt. Then here's the famous page. It starts out with Commander-in-Chief Franklin Roosevelt. Here's Harry Hopkins, Admiral William Leahy. There's some other names here as Dr. Hap Arnold, Admiral King, and many other famous people come down this list. This is from the family of the first commanding officer of the second commissioning for the Korean War. That was then Captain, later Admiral Smedberg. And his Marine orderly kept this incredible scrapbook of Iowa returning into commission for the Korean War. And it runs through the commissioning period, her shakedown cruise out to Hawaii. And then there's different congratulations telegrams. There's different newspaper articles. And then there's pictures as she deployed for her wartime cruise off North Korea. Fleet Admiral Nimitz was part of the staff or guests that gave the commissioning speech in San Francisco for Iowa's second commissioning. And the governor's of Iowa's wife was also present there. And I'm skipping a few pages. Congratulations, telegrams. Here's Office of the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Navy. This is so much fun to go through. I'm skipping now to, here's pictures of the damage to the North Korean railroad that the big 16-inch guns were firing. This is also from the 1950 era of the Korean War. It's called trench art. I think it was completed or built by the crew. And on the far left-hand side, you have the flag admirals. In the center section, you have the commanding officers listed. And in the far corner, you have the executive officers listed. This is our technical library for information to do research. We also have, going further back aft, we have the cruise books that have been donated. This is from both the 1950s and the 1980s, the second and third commissioning period. Unfortunately, Iowa never produced a cruise book during World War II. This is an officer's chair from the officer's wardroom on the former battleship Nagato. At the end of World War II, of the 12 Japanese battleships that started World War II, the only one still afloat, although damaged by bombs, afloat in Tokyo Bay when the American fleet steamed in to occupy Japan, was Nagato. And part of Iowa's Marines and sailors, along with other ship's crews, occupied the Yamato and accepted her surrender. Here's a picture on her stern. This was called Task Force 31, and they also were the initial group that went on board or went ashore to inspect the Nagasaki Naval Base to ensure that Japan had followed the directions to stand down their weapons, disassemble them so they couldn't use them as our occupation troops were coming into homeland Japan. Also, these are called 1MCs for making announcements on naval warships. This was used by President Reagan when Iowa was a flagship, July 4th, 1986. You also see the brick items over here in the corner. Those are called holy stones. This is how you would clean a wooden deck. You would put at the end of broom or a mop handle. You'd line up several sailors abreast. You'd throw sand on the deck along with water, and you would lean over like you were praying. That's where the term came up. And you would go down and just basically sand the upper surface of the deck. And the battleships, as well as cruisers of that era, they would almost be sparkling a light color. And sometimes there'd be a secret, they called it bleach formula, to even make them look lighter. We at one point in time constructed a see-through model of Iowa down here. This is when we were trying to determine how we were going to conduct tours before we opened to the public.